Chapter 1. The Perfect Illusion. John, a tall, dark-haired architect with a strong build, gazed across their spacious living room at Megan. She was a vision. Tall, with fair skin, striking green eyes, and long, dark brown hair cascading down her back. Her figure was enviable, a tiny waist accentuating generous curves. Their life together felt like a dream, a perfect illusion. They were the picture of a happy couple, their love a vibrant tapestry woven with shared laughter, quiet evenings, and romantic getaways. Their mornings began with simple exchanges. "Good morning, beautiful," John would murmur, pulling Megan close. "Good morning, handsome," she'd reply, her voice soft as silk. Their days unfolded in a predictable rhythm. Work, dinner, quiet evenings spent curled up on the sofa, watching movies and talking. Their vocabulary was simple, their conversations filled with basic phrases. "I love you," "You're amazing," "Have a good day." These were the building blocks of their seemingly perfect world. But lately, a subtle shift had occurred. Megan seemed more distant, more preoccupied. She worked later, hours, frequently missing dinner. The easy laughter that once filled their home had become less frequent, replaced by a quiet that felt heavy and strained. John noticed a new fragrance clinging to her, a sweet, exotic scent he didn't recognize. He tried to dismiss it as nothing but a strange feeling. A nagging doubt began to creep into his heart. He felt a growing unease, a worry he couldn't quite articulate. Something was different. Something was wrong. He just couldn't put his finger on it. Chapter 2. Shadows of Doubt. The subtle shifts in their relationship escalated. Megan's late nights became the norm, her explanations vague and unconvincing. "Long day at the office," she'd say, her voice flat, her eyes avoiding his. He tried to understand, to be patient. But the growing distance between them was a chasm he couldn't bridge. He felt increasingly frustrated. His attempts at connection met with monosyllabic responses and evasive glances. Their conversations, once lively and engaging, were now stilted and strained. Simple phrases like, "How was your day?" were met with a curt "fine," or a distracted "busy." The new perfume, a heady blend of jasmine and something else he couldn't place, became a constant reminder of the growing distance. It clung to her clothes, her hair, her skin, a fragrant ghost of a life he no longer fully understood. He started noticing other things. A new pen, sleek and expensive, resting on her desk. A mysterious phone call she took in hushed tones, quickly, ending the conversation when he entered the room. Emails that were quickly closed as he approached. He felt a growing sense of unease, a suspicion that gnawed at him, whispering insidious doubts in his ear. One evening, he found her crying softly in their bedroom, her face buried in a pillow. He reached out to comfort her, but she flinched away, It's work, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. A difficult case, a very aggressive client. Her words felt hollow, unconvincing. He didn't believe her. He was becoming increasingly suspicious, his worry morphing into a deep-seated fear. He was starting to suspect something was terribly wrong, something far more significant than just a difficult case. The shadows of doubt were lengthening, threatening to engulf their once perfect world. He needed answers, and he was determined to find them. Chapter 3. The Discovery. The nagging suspicion festered, growing into a certainty. John's usually meticulous nature, honed by years of architectural precision, now focused on finding proof of what he already knew in his heart. He started subtly, examining Megan's belongings, searching for clues, his actions fueled by a mixture of fear and a desperate need for answers. He found nothing overtly incriminating at first, just the usual clutter of a busy professional's life. But then, tucked away in the back of her desk drawer, he found it. A small, elegantly engraved pen, far too expensive for a simple work purchase. He recognized the style. It was the type of pen a businessman, not a lawyer, would carry. His heart pounded as he meticulously examined it. A tiny, almost invisible initial was etched near the clip. R. The same R from the cryptic note he'd found weeks earlier, tucked into the lining of her coat pocket. Dinner at 8. R. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly falling into place, forming a picture too painful to bear. Then came the email. He'd accidentally opened it while searching for an old client file, drawn to the unfamiliar name in the sender's address. He'd seen the name before, vaguely, in a magazine article about successful entrepreneurs. Roger Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries. The email, a series of flirty messages, revealed a clandestine affair, a betrayal that cut him to the core. Megan's carefully constructed facade of a busy lawyer crumbled, revealing a hidden life of secret meetings and stolen moments. The words were simple, almost mundane, yet they burned with the searing intensity of 1,000 betrayals. Dinner was wonderful, one message read. Can't wait to see you again. Another. Thinking of you. Simple phrases, yet loaded with a significance that chilled him to the bone. The carefully crafted image of his perfect life shattered, replaced by a harsh reality of deceit and betrayal. He felt a wave of nausea, his breath catching in his throat. He stumbled back, his legs weak, the room spinning around him. The R was no longer just a letter. It was a symbol of his shattered world. The weight of his discovery pressed down on him, a crushing burden of pain and disbelief. He was devastated. Chapter 4. The Confrontation. The discovery had left John reeling, but the need for answers, for an explanation, propelled him forward. He found Megan in their garden, tending to her roses, her back to him. The setting sun cast long shadows, mirroring the darkness that had settled over their lives. He approached slowly, his footsteps heavy on the manicured lawn. The scent of roses, usually so comforting, now felt suffocating, a bitter reminder of the beauty that had been poisoned by betrayal. "Megan," he said, his voice barely a whisper, the word catching in his throat. She turned, her face pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and guilt. He held up the pen, the engraved R gleaming in the fading light. "This," he said, his voice trembling with barely controlled rage. "Explain this." She didn't speak, her silence a damning confession. He showed her the emails, the blatant evidence of her affair with Roger Sterling, the man whose name he'd seen in that magazine article, the man whose expensive pen now lay in his hand. The words, once so simple and innocuous, now stung like 1,000 tiny needles. "Dinner was wonderful. Can't wait to see you again. Thinking of you." Each phrase was a fresh wound, a brutal reminder of her deception. Megan finally broke down, a torrent of tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, John," she sobbed, her voice choked with grief. I don't know how it happened. I was confused. He's so charming, successful, everything you're not." Her words, though intended as an explanation, felt like a further betrayal. He listened, his heart heavy with a mixture of pain and bewilderment. Her words were a feeble attempt to justify the unjustifiable. He wanted to rage, to scream, to lash out. But the pain was too profound, the betrayal too deep. Instead, a cold numbness settled over him, a chilling realization that the life he had known, the life he had loved, was irrevocably gone. He looked at her, at the woman he had loved with all his heart, and saw a stranger who had betrayed him in the most profound way imaginable. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with unspoken accusations, regrets, and the lingering scent of shattered dreams. The garden, once a haven of peace and tranquility, now felt like a desolate wasteland, reflecting the desolation in his soul. He turned and walked away, leaving her alone amidst the dying light and the wilting roses. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. The days that followed were a blur of numb routine. John went through the motions of his life, a ghost inhabiting a shell of his former self. He went to work, his architectural designs now seeming as lifeless and empty as he felt inside. He ate, slept, and existed, a mere shadow of the vibrant, passionate man he once was. The silence in the house was deafening, a constant reminder of Megan's absence, both physical and emotional. The scent of her perfume, once a symbol of their intimacy, now haunted him, a phantom presence clinging to the fabric of his life. He tried to focus on his work, burying himself in blueprints and designs, but the images of Megan and Roger, their clandestine meetings, their stolen moments, kept intruding on his thoughts. He replayed their last conversation in his mind. Her words, like shards of glass piercing his heart. He's so charming, successful, everything you're not. Her words were a cruel judgment, a painful indictment of his own perceived shortcomings. He started to analyze his life, his relationship with Megan. Had he been too preoccupied with his work? Had he failed to nurture their relationship, to understand her needs? He questioned himself relentlessly, seeking answers in the wreckage of his shattered life. He learned the word introspection and found it a painful but necessary process. He began to rebuild, slowly, painstakingly. He spent hours in the gym, his physical exertion a way to channel his anger, his grief, his confusion. He reconnected with old friends, seeking solace in their company. He started learning a new skill, photography, finding solace in the beauty he could capture through his lens. He focused on simple things, the morning sun, the rustling leaves, the changing colors of the sky. He found solace in the beauty of the natural world, a beauty that transcended the pain and betrayal he had endured. The simple act of framing a scene, of capturing a moment, became a meditative process, a way to find peace in the chaos of his life. He was learning to live again, to heal, to move forward, one day, one photograph, one breath at a time. He was rebuilding his life, brick by painful brick. Chapter 6. Finding Peace. Months passed. The sharp edges of his grief had softened, replaced by a quiet acceptance. He still carried the weight of betrayal, but it no longer crushed him. He learned to live with the pain, to integrate it into the fabric of his being, rather than allowing it to define him. He found a new appreciation for the simple things, the warmth of the sun on his skin, the taste of freshly brewed coffee, the quiet solitude of his studio. He rediscovered a passion for his work, finding solace in the creative process, the meticulous detail, the transformation of raw materials into something beautiful and enduring. His photography became more than a hobby. It became a form of therapy, a way to express the emotions he couldn't articulate in words. He captured the subtle beauty of everyday life, the delicate petals of a flower, the intricate patterns of a spider web, the play of light and shadow on a weathered wall. Each photograph was a meditation, a journey into the heart of his own healing. Then he met Kate, a vibrant redhead with striking light green eyes. She was a real estate broker, tall and athletic, with a generous figure and a warm, infectious laugh. Their first meeting was at a gallery opening, a chance encounter that blossomed into something unexpected. She possessed a playful spirit and an unwavering optimism that slowly chipped away at the hardened shell he'd built around his heart. She saw past the scars of his past, recognizing the strength and resilience hidden beneath. Their relationship deepened, a slow, steady growth built on mutual respect and understanding. He found himself falling in love again, a love that was both different and yet profoundly familiar. It was a love that healed, that nurtured, that helped him to embrace the future with a renewed sense of hope. He married Kate, and in her arms, he finally found the peace he had so desperately sought. The pain of Megan's betrayal was still present, a faint scar on his heart, but it no longer defined him. He had found happiness again, a happiness that was stronger, deeper, and more meaningful than anything he'd experienced before. He had not only survived the heartbreak, but had emerged stronger, wiser, and profoundly grateful for the love that had healed him. End of story.